internet, mobile, and digital payments. So I was given a brief like for the entire day. You've been having sessions around term sheets, evaluation, what we guys look at. So I thought that I would summarize everything in terms of what have our experiences been while we looked at various companies. So I guess Paula might have talked about it. Like majorly what we look at is the team, the market size, the business model.
Vikram, you can use this board if you want. Yeah.
And the value proposition. So majorly these are the 4 filters that we investors use to look at any opportunity. I mean, there might be derivatives of this. You could say that how big this company could be, what would be the multiples of this, how much we would earn out of it, and so on. But if I crystallize down to 4 major things, this would they be. So I guess all these Paula must have explained in the morning, or I should go through each of them.
No.
She has explained, right? So I would categorize things that I've seen into 3 buckets: deals that we saw and we did, deals that we saw we didn't do, and deals that we saw we put into a watch bucket. So deals that we saw and we did. So there would be 2 kinds of deals that we saw and we did. First is I meet the entrepreneur for the first time and I say I want to do this deal. In the first meeting itself. Why is it? This is I wouldn't name the company, but why we wanted to do the deal? Because the team was a rock star, had worked at big MNCs in similar space earlier. They were solving a niche problem which we felt was a multi-billion opportunity. In terms of business model, they hadn't figured out how the business would shape up, what this would look at the end of, let's say, 10 years. But in our mind, we knew that this is a venture risk that we want to carry, and we were fine with it. So my team was taken care of. Market size, I knew it was big. The value prop, I said they were solving a niche problem which nobody else was thinking about, at least at that point of time. And the business model risk we were ready to take. So that's how that company we funded. Now, you could say that what is the valuation you did at? Was valuation a constraint? Typically, if the entrepreneurs are talking sense, they know that in the early stage it's all about, you cannot value a company because you don't have revenues. So what we did was that this company is gonna need, let's say, 20 lakhs per month for next 18 months, 20 lakhs into 18 months, plus let's say 50-60 lakhs of buffer. So that much money I give to the company, and what I say is that my fund has a strategy that I want to own somewhere between 30 to 40% of the company, because I'm taking early stage risk, and that's what my strategy is. So the valuation would sum up something between this much money, this much stake I want, and that is the valuation of the company. So typically, if investors like the company, they want to do it, valuation is something that we can work out. But my advice to entrepreneurs would be that don't be too stuck about the valuation early in your journey. Because if you are getting the right kind of investor, take it. And also while taking an investor, don't take the investor just for the sake of money. Because we always say that if you are not adding value, value is not just in terms of providing money, but it is also in terms of providing you insights into the space. So for example, we say that we are great at consumer index companies. We wouldn't say that in terms of the enterprise companies. So if some investor, some entrepreneur wants to raise money from us, which is an enterprise company, we would say don't take money from us just because we are providing money. So that is something that you guys need to be careful about. Second kind of company which we funded was first meeting, we liked the team, but in terms of how big it could be, is the solution that they are providing, is it a niche, somebody else is not doing it, or if somebody else is doing it, how these guys are thinking it differently, we weren't clear in the first meeting. So in this case, what we did is that we had multiple meetings and we churned lots of data. So, for example, this is a company that we didn't do, but I would give you an example. So I'm looking at a SaaS company. What I'm worried about is how are their metrics tracking up. So what I look for in a SaaS company is how are their per customer monthly revenues tracking up. Are they going up? Are the customers happy? Is there a churn? If that is tracking up, that gives me level of confidence is that their business is shaping up well. So in this case, when we dig deeper into their data, we realize that they were having a value prop as well as the market size was big enough. And the business model, when we worked with them, they also realized that this is the way we should progress. And so at the end of like 5-6 meetings, multiple calls, we decided that we want to do the deal. So this is the second kind of bucket where we did a deal. Now the other bucket is where we didn't do the deal. So in this case, first meeting I say, I don't want to do the deal, that's clear. The second type of deal is where you get into multiple conversations and you are very transparent to the entrepreneur saying that we like you, we like the problem that you are solving, but these are the problems that we are still questioning to ourselves and we need to do some homework. So at the end of that, we come to a conclusion saying that the team is good, I want to back this team, but would it give me venture returns? Because at the end of the day, we are investors and we want to make returns. We are not typically impact investors or social investors. So that didn't make sense and hence we didn't do the deal. The third kind of bucket that we had is companies which we want to put into the watch bucket. So these are deals or companies which typically come early to us. So for example, if there is a e-commerce enabler company which is solving a unique problem. So let me give you an example. Let's say around discovery. So sound goods product discovery is a big problem in e-commerce. So I like a shirt. What is the pant that would go along with the shirt? Somebody needs to solve it. It's not a search problem, but it's a discovery problem. Now there are very few companies in India who are solving it. So what I do is that I try to meet multiple companies in this space, and then I say I rank the teams, which are the best teams in this, and I say that although they are early in their career, let me put them on watch. So what watch means is that after I met them, I track them every month or once a quarter what progress they have made. And so one such company, like we tracked that company for a year, and their metrics were making sense, the team was making sense. Although there was some business model risk, but we took the risk and we did make the investment. So these are majorly the three buckets that I would say wherein we looked at various investments. In terms of a caveat over there, it's not necessary that when one investor says that it doesn't fit my strategy or the way I look at this deal is that the market size is limited, it's not necessary the other investor also looks at it in a similar fashion. So those are majorly the things I would say that we would look out for. Now, since this was an impromptu presentation, what I would do is that I would make the floor open. If you have any questions, I would try to answer them.
What is the investment size? Nirvana?
So we invest somewhere between $500,000 to $4 million in the first check.
$500,000 to
$4 million.
Nothing lower than $500,000. And what type of equity you expect? 35%.
So we, if I do an early stage deal, we would look somewhere between 30 to 40%.
And the first fund is closed or it's open itself?
It's open.
How do you calculate on the basis of previous investment or how is it going to be completely on the basis of?
So in early stage, you basically, if I'm looking at a consumer company, you wouldn't have revenues. Let's say you are making a mobile app solving XYZ problem for the consumer, you wouldn't be generating revenues. So the way I would look at an early stage is this much amount of money you need for next 18 months. I need certain percentage stake in the company, that's how I would value it. But if it is a Series B, Series C thing, then there are various multiples. So I could look at the install base that you have, I could look at the user engagement that you have, and there are multiple such metrics. So for example, in the mobile world, what I would look at is the acquisition bucket, so how many users you have acquired, how many users you have engaged, and how many users you have retained. So I would take a derivative of all these three things and then how I would value the company.
Do you invest in consumer?
Consumer e-commerce, like now it's pretty late. We are a small fund. So the way we look at e-commerce now is that e-commerce is about finding a product, buying a product, and post sales. So we look the e-commerce stack into these various three buckets, and then we play in these three buckets. So we have a company which is solving the finding problem. We have a company which is solving the post sales problem, which is a payments company. And in the middle bucket, we have a third company. So that's how we look at e-commerce.
Could you repeat
Sorry?
finding, then you said some stages. The first stage you said finding, and the second and the third.
So finding, buying, and then post sales. Sorry?
IoT space?
No. So this around the business model, it's again a fund level perspective. So we guys are very uncomfortable around capex led models. Like I'm not saying the business would be good or not good.
It's not CapEx, it's SaaS driven.
So you are building a visualization layer or something on top of that.
You can say so. Actually not. It's a service that we are delivering to the end customer, which is not tracking the children essentially.
So does it involve a piece of hardware?
Yes.
You need to buy it.
Customer price.
Do you stock it?
No.
Fair. So, I mean, that is then business model innovation when you are distributing the hardware but you are not stocking it. That's fine, at least from our perspective. From others, it might be different.
In terms of different verticals that you focused on, or anybody we can ask who are there from different verticals and then specialists, you think that would
Yeah, very much. So, like, in terms of spaces, I talked about internet mobile payments. So, in each of these verticals, the market size piece needs to be taken care of. So, let me take an example of payment. So, any of you are here solving a digital payments problem?
I've done it previously in many of these organizations.
No, fair enough. So digital payment, the problem is when entrepreneurs typically talk about market size, rather than digital payments, let me take an example of e-commerce. So if somebody is, for example, solving, making a business around e-commerce affiliate model. So we say, what is your market size? So they say that the market size is the entire e-commerce market, which is like 2 billion, 2.5 billion. Now the problem is that e-commerce, let's say it's a $2 billion market, except Facebook, Google, the affiliate generated proportion of this is around 30%, which is around $600 million. The affiliates make 10% on this, which is 60 million. Now, for the affiliate, 60 million is the market size. Now, on this 60 million, somebody could make a great lifestyle business, but when VCs look at it, what are you going to make out of it? Let's say I take the entire market, 60 million. If somebody makes great business, even if I have a EBITDA of, let's say 30%, I would, let's say, get 5 multiples on it, so 300 million. So this is the size of entire market, and the market is fragmented. So these things you need to take care of, whether you want to build a lifestyle company or you want to build a VC-backed company. VCs typically would want the market size to be big enough. Or then you need to have very specific thing or a thought through strategy, and typically this plays out in the enterprise stacks. Let's say Cisco wants to build certain enterprise stack which they are not building in-house. So somebody from Cisco steps out, they build that stack, they sell it for $50-60 million. That's how they do. I mean, in the valley, this is very common. But in India, great enterprise companies built out of India are very handful. So, in my belief, the current market trend is about the consumer internet and mobile about India. There, this wouldn't really make sense. You really need to excite the investor that this is, let's say, $500 million story or whatever.
$500 million market or the scale one can get to?
$500 million company.
So the market size should be $3-4 billion average.
If it's a $1 billion market, how are you going to make a $500 million company? That story should be clear to you.
50% share is too much, no? So I'm saying.
So a market leader would have 20% market share.
That's $3-4 billion market size.
How do you come to a X, like you give 5X? How do you decide on that? What kind of valuation?
So, like, there are two ways to look at it. There are industry benchmarks to value a company. So, for example, if I am taking a payment processor, so if I look at Visa, Master, they are valued at 9 to 10x of their sales. So those benchmarks are available. And typically, the thumb rule is higher the bottom line, higher the margin, higher is the multiple. Because at the end of the day, you have to make money, and the more I give at the bottom line, higher the multiples would be.
Higher the margin, higher the interest. Thank you.
What is the kind of revenues that a company like Flipkart is making per sale, percentage wise?
You are talking about unit economics or what?
Unit economics. That means
So this is public data. I am not an insider. So public data is that the average transaction value for Flipkart ranges between 1,200 to 1,500. Now what their CAC is, I don't know. But the CAC when an e-commerce company starts, it lies somewhere between 800 to 1,000 rupees. When it matures, it goes down to around 300 to 400 rupees. So just to explain the math which might be helpful to you guys. So if I am making a sale of 1,500 rupees, the gross margin typically would be 20%. So I make 300 rupees. And now if my CAC is around 800 rupees, I am making a loss of 500 rupees per transaction. So this CAC piece, most like 60% of the entrepreneurs that I met in a consumer story don't know what their CAC is. So CAC is customer acquisition cost, which is the amount of money you spend on your sales and marketing divided by the number of consumers that you have acquired. This piece is very important if you are working a unit economics model.
Now in a marketplace model where you are working both buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
You have buyers and sellers displaying all sorts of information. Your buyers who are coming in, looking at that information and making their decisions. In that case, you're not only acquiring sellers, but you're acquiring customers.
Yeah.
So in that case, how does the unit economics play out? I'm just trying to understand.
So you would have a customer acquisition cost, you would have a seller acquisition cost.
Okay.
But the beauty of marketplace is that you are not making gross margin, I mean you are making a transaction revenue. So you are not having any inventory, you are not buying any inventory. So somebody is coming, putting his product, you are selling it across, that's it. So you are just a pass-through, and hence it's a asset-light model, and hence the amount of money needed to make that big company small. So let's take an analogy of Amazon and eBay. So Amazon today is valued at 140 billion, eBay is at 70 billion. The amount of money that eBay took to build that and the amount of money Amazon took to build that is very different. So those are the nuances. That again falls into what I talked about, the business model. So for example, we are very uncomfortable around inventory-led models. So we haven't done any e-commerce story. But a marketplace might be we might be very comfortable.
Again, will we look at the LTV for the supplier as well as the value that he's adding, or just the consumer because he's buying?
So typically in marketplace, people take a category by category approach. So for example, if you must have seen Amazon, when Amazon.in was launched, the first category that they launched was books. I'm not saying their history, but when they launched in 2011, so you always go category by category, wherein I say, I have built a demand side for books, I have built the supply side. Now I go to the next category. So now they are around 16, 17 categories, but if you look at a year back, they were around 8 categories.
But eBay did not start with that. I mean, in India too, was across all categories. But as you said, an asset light model.
But eBay bought out Bazi.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's how
Bharat
they
also was across all categories.
But their history, when Bazi started in 1999, they started category by category. It was not across. And Bazi, by the way, started with an auction model.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No, that's what I'm wondering. It's the same. But all categories, auction, all categories.
Auction all categories, but if I'm building a marketplace, that was not the piece. And again, I might be wrong.
No, no.
So just my perspective.
But don't you think that making the revenues in terms of margins in a marketplace is a bit tough as compared to the inventory? Because the market operating prices of various products are very straightforward kept by vendors.
Yeah.
So in terms of, if I compare an inventory, if you're picking up the product directly from the manufacturer,
Yeah.
and in a marketplace where you're taking it from a new or small vendor, it's different.
No, so typically, like, what are the new marketplace pricing fees? I am not aware of. But if you look at when eBay was there, I mean eBay is still there. You had a listing fee. You want to sell a product, you have a listing fee. That's it. So that's what I make out of it. So whatever you want to sell at, that's not my worry. I am just a platform. You put your product. So what is for sure is that I'm gonna make money. Now, if I'm offering discount from the marketplace thing, yeah, then my margins are suffering. Elsewise, my margins are not suffering. And even in the marketplace, the good thing is that in any network story, if you are building a two-sided network, a three-sided network, replicating you is very difficult because you need to have both sides, supply and demand, to be built, to be replicated. So it's a chicken and egg story which needs to be solved.
You talked about an asset-light model.
Yeah.
What are the typical margins that a company or e-company an e-com company makes?
So the gross margins differ from category to category. So for example, in electronics, in my understanding, it is below 10%. In apparel, it is as high as 30 to 40%.
Electronics too, it varies from manufacturer to manufacturer.
I'm just giving a blended average.
Only 2% margin.
Yeah. And again, it goes further up if you have a white label product. Yeah.
Like from morning like we hearing that your business model should be very unique in something like that. I mean, initially when Flipkart and Amazon, they both got funded. They both are having the same kind of model like marketplace, but then eventually both of them got really good funding. So how that is not unique. I mean, both of them do the same.
Fair enough. So just a small correction over there. When Flipkart started, they didn't start as a marketplace. They moved to a marketplace. Snapdeal started as a deal site, they moved to a marketplace. Now, in terms, so Snapdeal in my mind is a marketplace. So Snapdeal is more like eBay. Flipkart is more like Amazon. That's how I would put it. And in a market as big as India, of course, 2 or 3 guys can exist over there. Now, if your question is around, can a new guy come in and displace them? My answer would be I doubt, because the amount of capital that is available over there, now to displace that, you probably need at least 100, 200 million to start off with. So now it is, capital is a big resource now, which would take them to the next level.
You mentioned something about MasterCard and Visa having been 9 or 10x revenue. So in a similar situation, what is the typical gross margins that
So for them, they don't, for example, what MasterCard Visa does, they are a network. So the only, they are a platform, but I don't go out and put a POS. What MasterCard Visa does, they sit between what is called the acquiring bank and the issuing bank. So you have a Citibank card, so that is sits over here. Here there is a HDFC machine that sits over here. They sit between those two. That's what they do. So they are basically providing a neutral technology platform. So there, if you talk about the cost of goods sold, it's very minimal for them. So their gross margins are very high, and their EBITDA margins are also very high. I am not aware. But in my mind, technology platforms should have EBITDA margins north of 30%.
So you would say that anything north of 30% should be 9-10?
I wouldn't say that. I would say for payments, that's true. For SaaS, it might be very different. So if you look at Workday also, Workday is like, I guess, 20 times sales.
What about the generalistic business?
So it again varies from what problem you are solving, what stage of life you are in. So, I mean, most of you guys might be aware of how it happens in the life of a company. When the company starts, you start making revenues. Your revenues grow non-linear, like this. When the company matures, the growth starts tapering. It is not non-linear growth, it's a predictable growth. Now, when that starts happening, your valuation multiple goes down a bit. At this point, the valuation multiple is high because I am investing into the company thinking about the future cash flows that are going to be made. So that's how it happens.
Would it also correlate to size of market? If the market is excessively large and completely fragmented or not developed at all?
Yeah, there would be multiple things, but the major thing I would say is that would factor into is the cash flows. Because if the market is small, I wouldn't have big cash flows. If I'm not the market leader, my cash flows would go down. So those would be factors that would influence my cash flows.
At the early stage, the four parameters that you mentioned were obviously take market size, business model, and value prop.
Yeah.
Do you know, I'm just trying to figure out where sustainable competitive advantage in terms that most VCs use. How are you different from A? How are you different from B? What prevents the C from entering into your market?
Yeah.
As an early stage investor, how do you kind of mitigate that risk and how?
So that falls into this value proposition bucket. So let me give you an example now. As he was talking about payments. Now, in payments, what you see the process. You saw many guys try to solve the problem of mobile POS in India. So the square-like devices in India. So you have something which you fit on mobile, you swipe your card. Now, there are various guys who look at it various ways. So Square said that you pay $99, buy it anywhere. Now there, it's a hardware play when it started with. Then there were few guys who layered multiple things.
Hello.
Yeah, so then there were many guys who tried to do innovative stuff around it, saying that it's not a hardware story, it's a service story. So what they said is that let anybody sell the hardware, I don't worry about it. I set a layer behind that and I just process it. So even if my margins are low, even if it's, let's say it's 20 bips, I'm fine. But what happens is that there is Square, then there is Intuit, and there are multiple such guys. So they come, overall, if they process, let's say 10 billion in a year, which is very small, they would process higher. But even if I make 20 bips on that 10 billion, it's a great story. So that is thinking, because everybody is talking about Square devices, but this guy says that doesn't make sense because it is capex intensive, it involves distribution, and hence cost of acquiring the customer is very high. But what I do is that I just sit behind, although my top lines are lower, but my margins are high. So that is value proposition.
But entry is easy in that.
Entry is not easy. So if you look at companies such as, let's say, BillDesk, you must have heard of BillDesk. So what BillDesk did great at was that when they started, they plumbed into most of the banks in India.
Correct.
Now you could say that the technology stack they have built, it's commoditized, anybody could do it.
Right.
But once you have that relationships in there, replacing you is very difficult. I'm not saying impossible, but replacing that kind of network, it's again a two-sided network. It's very difficult.
you're saying this is a first mover advantage. Basically, the fundamental is there. So if you're in a space as the one you were suggested, so you have to be very early. Builders was really very early. 99, 2000 or maybe a little earlier than that.
I guess 2003, 4 was.
No, much earlier. 99.
That was the time when they got the first signature.
ICICI, these guys left and then they broke off from ICICI reporting. So 99. That's very early. But right now the valuation of builders is not very high, because there have been several other players come in who are offering at a lesser rate than builders.
But if you look at still, even if there are multiple players, there are 3 players in the market if I'm not wrong.
No, now there are, I think,
In that space, I'm not talking the PGPs.
Okay.
I'm just talking about transaction processing, what they do. So there are only 3 players. And the difference between builders and the second player is like 10x. So now if I'm an investor, I'm a growth stage investor, if I'm a hedge fund, I want to back the leader, that's it. So that way.
Could you share few of the examples where you invested? What was the rationale behind it? In what all companies you invested?
So, since we are talking about payments, we have a company called Transfer. So what they do is that they provide prepaid solutions to corporates. So prepaid could be a prepaid card or digital wallet. So for example, you operate a retail store, you want to offer prepaid card to all your customers, right? So you go to Transfer and say them that I want to provide 1,000 prepaid cards to my customers. These are the rules. Provide me the cards. They would say okay. Within 10 days you would get these cards. You would say, do I need to talk to the bank? Do I need to talk to the technology provider? They would say nothing. We would do everything for you. Now, the rationale behind investing into that company was great team. Like they were all ex-bankers, total experience of around 60 years. 4 guys, they had worked into cards, they knew the cards business very well. Second was payments. Are they solving a real problem? We said they are solving a problem because in India, less than 50% of the population is a bank population. 60% is unbanked population. And RBI wants digital money to be penetrated as much as possible. So now what is the solution? It's prepaid. So what I talked about, team was a tick mark, market size was a tick mark, value proposition was a tick mark. Business model, this again evolved. Like what they started off with and what it has evolved, it's an evolved version of when they started off with. So just a point over there is that the business model is never set percent over there across the journey of the company. It keeps on evolving. So there is no right answer to the business model. The only thing that we look out for is that are you thinking in the right direction? So for example, as I said about CapEx, are you thinking about CapEx? I'm not thinking about CapEx. Are you thinking of outsourcing non-core stuff? Yes. So these are the major things that we would look out for. Because at the end of the day, you are also believing 18 months down the line, this is what is going to happen, I am also believing. Beyond that, it's nothing. So that was the rationale over there. Then we invested into a company called CardRocket.
How much you invested? How long was the period for that?
So we haven't disclosed the amounts, but we did 2 rounds. The first round we did 2 years back. The second round we did recently.
This is Transfer.
Yeah. So the difference between the first round and second round was that the company had come a long way around. So just a number over there is that when we invested, the amount of money that used to flow on their networks every month was, if it was X then, today it is like 20X when we now put in the money. So that was that. And recently we put in money into a company called CardRocket. So their team I am taking hygiene everywhere. Why we invested, I would tell. What this company basically does is that I am an offline retailer. I want to sell products on Amazon, eBay, Snapdeal, whatever online marketplaces are. So what I just do is that I go to CardRocket, create my account. I say I want to sell mobiles. I put my product and I say I want to sell on Amazon, eBay, tick, click, it's published everywhere. And so publishes it everywhere at the same time, as well as it gives me a consignation report where I've got orders from. Beyond this, what it also does is that it gives me a consigned report of payments. It also gives me an option of shipments. Let's say you got an order from Rajkot, you got an order from Delhi. Blue Dart ships cheaper to Rajkot, DTDC ships cheaper to Delhi. So it gives me you use this shipper. So my core is buying great products, selling great products. Online I don't understand shipping. So CardRocket takes care of everything. So now what we said, why we invested into this? We said that product retail is a big story. SMBs in India are big. SMBs want to go online. So the trends are right and you need a solution who wants to solve this. You would say there would be competitor. There was a competitor named Shopify. I mean, it's there, but it's a global company. For a global company to sit in the US and innovate for India, it's very difficult. So a point over there, what we always say is that global players can win non-frictional plays in India. So Google, Facebook has won search and social. Frictional plays, local players will win. So if you want to make a company, try to focus after frictional plays. Frictional plays are plays wherein you need to understand the consumer. There is a regulatory aspect. There are multiple things which you being in India can solve, not a global player can solve. So that was CardRocket. So there were such multiple.
Can you share a little more on CardRocket? I mean, when was the first funding done? Was the idea ready, or the product ready when you came in?
Yeah, so CardRocket is the company which falls into the third bucket. What I said is that companies that we like and we track. So CardRocket's first funding when it happened, even before that, like I had seen the product, I said that this is a product that's gonna work. So the first round investors there were 500 startups, Dave McClure. So we said that whenever you guys, we met them, we said whenever you guys want to do the next round, let us know. So for 1 year we were tracking them. Their metrics were excellent. So what metrics we checked over there is that how many merchants you've onboarded, how many merchants left you, how many orders are processed on your platform. So all those metrics were growing non-linearly. And the team, we knew that it was great. So that's what made us make the investment.
What is the margin of CardRocket?
Second round, you did the second round, right?
Yeah.
First round was 500 startups.
Yeah.
They must have done seed funding.
Yeah, then they again reinvested.
And you did angel, or you did?
No, we did the proper seed or pre-series, what we call.
Average, let's just say 5 crores or 10 crores, how much?
So that would range between, what I said, early stage for us ranges between $500,000 to $2 million.
But that's a seed funding, 500 to 2 million, right?
So
for
CardRocket would fall into that bucket.
Okay.
Could you cite some?
What is the margins of CardRocket?
Mobile and internet interface.
So we have a company called Zopper, which is a mobile company. What it does is that it is a shopping companion app. So for example, you are sitting here, you want to buy an iPhone 5, you go to Zopper, say iPhone 5, it tells that these are the online companies selling at all these prices. So it's standard online shopping comparison. But what it does is, it also tells what offline stores around here are selling that product and at what prices. So in iPhone 5, this functionality is operational in Delhi only right now. So what it would do is that you say iPhone 5, it would list stores. So do you want to get prices from offline stores? You click yes. It would instantly send messages to all those stores. Those stores within 5 minutes would send you the prices. So you have real-time prices of online stores and offline stores.
How would the offline stores send you prices in 5 minutes?
So they have an app.
Okay, so they get an inquiry, they're able to
Yeah.
respond. So there's a human interface response
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah. Or if he has put,
It might be 25 minutes. or
Sorry.
it might be 2 days.
no, so it's not just sent to 5 guys. It's sent to multiple guys. You get an algorithm which runs, which will bring you the lowest 3 prices.
Okay.
That's how it works. And typically what happens is that some few merchants also opt for that for next 7 days, this is the price I want to display. And so what it does is that this goes back to what I was discussing, the way we look at e-commerce these days. E-commerce is not just about consumers, merchants who want to make an online sale. There are also merchants who want to compete with the online guys without making an online sale. So these are guys who publish prices online, but the transaction happens offline.
And Zoho has a commission structure, or they have a listing fee that they charge for networking these vendors?
So the monetization model, I would say it's a bit early to talk about it. There are various pieces that we are trying.
Any others that you are excited about?
So I talked about CardRocket, I talked about Transfer, I talked mobile. Then we have a gaming company called GameStudent. So their game called Parking Frenzy was the number one on US App Store for around a week, which has around 20 million downloads. So gaming is, content and gaming is another thing that excites us.
As is Zoho was saying, your seed investment that you
Yeah, so we did the pre-series A thing, then we again reinvested when Tiger came.
They raised
So-
5 million, right, in seed.
Yeah, we and Tiger put in the next year.
It was reduced for it before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any failures? I mean, you would like to.
We are an early fund, we are just 3.5 years old, so early.
Excuse me.
No, because just to share, you must be seeing some companies or some founders not working as you had planned earlier. So maybe you can share what not to do.
So the only
Subsequent to
thing,
funding.
so the only thing I would say is that founders or entrepreneurs many times miss out that investors are not just investors, but you have onboarded on a journey that you both want to go together. So it's in the best interest of both parties to be as transparent as possible. So we have seen companies wherein founders, when they need help, they are very upfront. When they are in a problem, they want to hide, they hide. And then when you discover, when as an investor I discover it from somewhere else, it gives me a level of uncomfort. So like any relationship, I would just say be as much transparent as you can.
How does Rocket makes money?
So they charge a monthly recurring revenue and then they make a pie out of the transaction.
They charge percentage.
Any inputs on negotiations? How do you think?
So negotiation again depends on where you are in the life of the company. So one
Especially, sorry to interrupt, but especially in a scenario where the startup knows that he has an edge and he's looking at an investment, and there you know that okay, you also realize the edge, but you want to value it and make profits for yourself as well.
So valuation in my mind is not just about making profit. It's also about getting a certain discipline. Why I say this is because let's say you are an early stage company, you just have a product ready, you don't have anything apart from the product. Now at this stage, if you say that I want to raise $1 million for 20%, I don't get it. Because $1 million, you just have product, you don't have anything beyond that, what are you gonna make out of it? I know that in this hot market you would be able to raise it, but what the problem happens is that you are valuing your company at $5 million. So the investor, next round, the current investor expects that he at least gets a markup of 3x. So now, in the next round, the company has to be valued at 15 million pre and whatever is the post. Now for 15 million pre, you need to have provided certain things, which if you don't prove, the problem is you don't get the next round investor. The current round investor also doesn't want to give money, so you have to do a down round, and then I don't know. So valuation is just not about me being stingy, but it's also about discipline and setting the right context.
Now within the investor circle, I'm sure you are all connected, and must be knowing, okay, this person is looking for investment for such a long time. How does it impact the startup or the entrepreneur when it comes to how early he or she should close on investments, or drag it around, or what do you see as
even go to an investor for that matter?
Sorry?
Or even go to an investor for that matter. How early should he disclose what he's gaining or what the plan is?
Look, ideas don't matter.
It's not ideas. It's the opportunity or the timing to getting value of his.
Yeah, so the thing I suggest is that depending on the stage of your company, go to the right investor. Don't just bombard it to multiple guys. So for example, you are looking to raise, let's say, $1 million. Who out there in the market provides $1 million in the sector that you are going after? So have a list of 4 guys that you want to go to. Go to them. If you get interest over there, that's great. If you don't go get interest, then you go to the next section. So it's similar to when you apply for your US studies. So sure shots, take a shot, and the best shot. So similarly, if you plan those things, that might be very useful, because in our experience, we have seen that we get like what, 1,000 deals per year. Out of those 1,000 deals, for multiple deals, I would say, just come to us and we say they are very early for us. So I don't think whether if that is the
Very early, as in they're not matured ideas, or they're not thought through.
no, they are thought through ideas, but just given the stage wherein we play in, that might be early for us. So early stage guys like Angel Networks or the Blooms of the world, the K Capital of the world might be doing for sure. I mean, there are of course avenues wherein you raise money at the right point in time. Just that it doesn't suit our strategy. And many times there are also few cases where the entrepreneur hasn't done study at all on the fund, which is a strict no-no.
How do you find out what is the best bet for a specific sector?
So if I want to make an investment into a sector, I scan the market.
No, not you, for the
Huh.
if you operate in a specific sector, how do you find out which are the best ones to target?
So you typically, the best metric to look for is the investment that they have made earlier, and if possible, talk to their portfolio.
If possible.
Talk to their portfolio company.
Okay, without naming any company, can you please tell us about the experience where you did your due diligence and you invested in a company and the company flopped?
Sorry?
Without naming the company, can you give us an example of all the homework and everything that you had done? And you thought the company will do well, the product will do well, the market was right, the team was perfect, but yet it did not do well and the company flopped.
No, as I said, we are very early. We are 3.5 years. No company has flopped yet. Everything is alive.
And how many investments do you have?
Sorry?
How many investments?
7.
Is it a better idea to keep reinvesting in the companies, the 7 companies, and keep them, working towards a $1 billion idea, or invest in trade?
So it again depends on the strategy that the fund is running with. But most of the funds, in my knowledge, they typically mark up a capital to be invested into the winners for successful round. That's how they trade.
But at 30-40%, very less would be left for the follow round.
Sorry, I didn't.
As an early investor, if Nirvana takes out 30-40% of the table, I guess that leaves little room for you guys for the follow-on investment.
No, because you get diluted.
No, you get diluted obviously.
So, for example, 30%, next round is 30% dilution. So, you anyways come to 21%.
Anybody, last question, or then we just break over here?
What's the most important in these 4? Is the team important, market important, or the priority?
Of course, like I would back the team if other things are to be.
Rest all can be piloted.
Yeah, I mean, the team has to be open, the right ingredients have to be in place. And that's what angels typically do, that I back a team.
When you say team, this is a question. When you say team, it could be a team that could be all 2 founders, or it could be a mix of people that brought on board, or decision makers. Understand? I mean, have you gone in any of these models with someone who just has 2 co-founders, probably less, and that's expanded?
So, the way I look at it is in terms of the org chart. So now, if I'm making, let's say, a mobile app, if it's a consumer app, what I would look for is somebody who is great at tech, somebody who is great at consumer acquisition, somebody who is great at product. So these are the 3 things, I mean, plus minus whatever it is. So assuming that these are the three things that I look out for. Now, as an entrepreneur, if I am early, I might have two guys onboarded. One guy, the entrepreneur, I would like the entrepreneur to say that this is a gap in the team and we are looking to hire somebody on this. I would be very happy if the entrepreneur marks out that this is a need. But there are many guys who say that no, we are a complete team, we can do everything, but that is not how it happens. Then down the journey, you figure out that you need to onboard.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. I'm sure you would have learned a lot, enjoyed all the sessions, met a lot of people who you want to meet too. We have another 10-15 minutes if you want to just network around, meet and know your other friends and colleagues out here. So having said that, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
With